Hey guys, it's Chase with Star Tutors again, and we are here with a very special guest. For those that have seen our ACT videos in the past, we are here to present a great SAT video with the one and only Owen Halpert.
What's up, guys? I'm very excited to be back and take another test for you guys. I never really thought that my claim to fame would be taking the ACT on video, but here we are, I guess.
We didn't think that the videos, it was Owen's idea from the very beginning when we did this last summer. We didn't think that they would be as popular as they've become in terms of the response we've gotten. We're very happy that students are watching these and are participating. Please make sure that you guys comment. Owen's been responding to comments on other videos, on his ACT videos. So again, we're really excited to see him do an SAT video today. Guys, before he gets going here, and then I'll get out of the way. I usually tend to be a distraction anyway. It's like one of those things where like the student slowly overtakes the teacher, and then everybody just stops wanting to see the teacher. But before you guys get started, one of the things that I want to mention is, and not to embarrass Owen, but I really want you guys to be thinking about what it takes to accomplish your goals and reach your goals. Owen's a perfect example of this, and again, not to embarrass him, but he's exactly what we want this company to represent. He works, whenever he has an excuse for not coming in, it's because he's busy doing a million other things, and that's how it has to be. I just don't want you guys to be finding an excuse not to do something just because you don't want to do it. If it's something because you're so busy and you guys want to work as hard as you can at everything you're doing, that is so awesome. And Owen's a perfect example of this. When he sits down to take this writing and language test today for the SAT, it's because he's learned a lot. I mean, it's because he was always asking the best questions. Owen and I have known each other for a long time now, and he's always very curious about the stuff that applies to this test, but just applies to everything in general. So again, not to embarrass Owen or to put him on put a lot of pressure on him before he starts this test, but it's super important that you guys think about that. Keep working hard. You guys are doing great. Thank you for watching all of these videos. If you guys have any questions for Owen or for any of us, please don't hesitate to comment. And yeah. All
right, so before we get started, I want to remind you guys to check out the Star U app, which is on the App Store. It's on my phone. You can also go to the website staru.co and find it there. I learned through this book. I wasn't lucky enough to be working through that app and have it at the touch of my fingertips like that, but all the content that's in that book is in that app for free. It's a really fast and easy way to practice. You can just go on there for 5 minutes a day and do a couple practice questions, and it'll hopefully help you get better at these tests and get more familiar with the material. And that kind of brings me to something like the reason that I'm able to take this test. I think the last time I took this was like almost 2 years ago, the ACT. I took the ACT in October of 2018, so not almost 2 years ago, but like 1.5. And that's when I was taking the SAT, ACT, stuff like that. And the point I'm trying to make is, like, when I went through this material, it wasn't just memorizing the rules or going through these books and just doing the problems to do the problems, but it was like learning the material and getting comfortable with, like, oh, this is what the question's asking, this is what the test is like. And so Chase touched on this a little bit, but like, you got to work towards these in a way that you're not just doing the problems and then taking the practice test, looking at making corrections and then just being done with it. You got to really sit down with your tests, make diligent corrections, really understand what you're getting wrong, and it'll help you understand the test, because that's what was most important for me, was understanding, like, getting in maybe like the test writer's head and on the ACT, and knowing, like, it's like basically a formula for all these questions. They're testing on the same stuff, and once you get to recognize those patterns, it's going to be really helpful. So as I take this test, I'm going to mention some things. I talked about them in my ACT English video, but there's some things that I'll quickly recognize. You'll see me throughout the test. There's going to be things that I quickly recognize as, like, maybe like themes or common question types that I'm just going to quickly answer, and hopefully it'll help you guys quickly answer those similar types of questions. All right, so we're taking the SAT writing and language test. We're not taking the math test. It's 35 minutes for 44 questions. We have 35 minutes on the timer here and nothing else, I promise. And my time is going to start now. All right, so 60 miles north of Guam and more than 1,700 feet under the ocean surface. So I'm just going to skip this first intro paragraph. You might want to come back to it later, but here we go. At that depth, water pressure suppresses the explosive force of the volcano's eruptions, allowing scientists to watch and observe them up close via remotely operated vehicles. So this is immediately one of those themes I was talking about. This is like a redundancy theme that you sometimes see in these English questions. Watch and observe mean the same thing. And then you see up here, it says, do I know how to do this?
Is there a comment? There you go.
Wait,
No comment.
comment.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
He's starting
There
out
we
on the
go.
wrong
There
foot
we go.
here.
Okay.
You gotta make up some time.
As I was saying, visually watch is the same. Is this visually watch? Those are two words that mean the same thing. Observe to see. Those mean the same thing. Watch and observe, like that would be answer choice A. Those are two words that mean the same thing. So you're gonna go with watch. It's the simplest answer choice. My pen is in green right now, but I'll change it for the next question. So yeah, watch is the simplest and best answer choice there. All right. To make the paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. So sentence 5 is, at that depth, water pressure suppresses the explosive force of volcanoes' eruptions. So you're gonna want to put that sentence around something that's talking about the depth. So 60 miles north of Guam and more than 1,700 feet under the ocean surface. That's talking about depth to me. 130 feet in height. So immediate instinct, I would say after sentence 1. That's going to be answer choice B. I'm saying that because I see that it says 1,700 feet under the ocean surface, and in the next sentence, if it says at that depth, that makes perfect sense in terms of the sequencing. Number 3, NW Rota 1 is far below the ocean zone where sunlight drives photosynthesis. Nevertheless, bacteria supporting a unique food web have adapted to this perpetually dark environment. And just a note, something that you'll see me do throughout these questions is I like to ignore a lot of the words in the sentences and just do like the first words and then the words right before the things that we're getting tested on. That helps me just focus on like the meat of the question and so you don't get caught up in these crazy biology words here. So they're far below the ocean zone where the sunlight is, but they can still support a unique food web. So that's where you would want to say something like nevertheless. Afterward, no. Furthermore, no. Similarly, no. Because it's saying they're below the ocean surface, but they can still adapt to this environment. So that's where you'd want to say something like nevertheless. So that's question choice or answer choice A. All right. And then this next sentence, the bacteria have evolved the chemical soup necessary to support him or her. It's still talking about the bacteria at this point. So if you just ignore everything else, the bacteria to support them. Yeah, them. There's an answer choice right there. That's going to be answer choice C. And yeah, because you don't need to use gender specific pronouns for these bacteria. Number 5, seawater seeps into fissures and the heat drives chemical reactions that remove oxygen, sulfates, and remove other chemicals. So this is just sentence structure and parallelism. You're not going to want to use this verb remove again if you've already said that the heat removes oxygen, sulfates, and other chemicals. You wouldn't say remove again. So these answer choices all have remove in them. So you're going to say and. Answer choice D. All right, question 6. Loihi shrimp, originally thought to only exist around an undersea volcano near Hawaii, survived by... So hyphens, they always kind of try to trick you up with these hyphens, but a good rule that Chase taught me that I always just remember is like if there's a hyphen before before a phrase, and there's going to be a hyphen after it usually, unless they end it in a different way. If the sentence continues like this, you're going to have bookends with hyphens. So like a hyphen before this thought and then a hyphen right after it. So I'm going to go straight to answer choice C and move right on. The loihi shrimp spend most of their time grazing on the bacteria and evading another previously unknown species of shrimp. Shrimp of that species also graze on bacterial filaments as juveniles, resulting from their ability to cope with the noxious environment around the volcano. Okay, which choice most effectively sets up the information in the next sentence? Okay, the next sentence is talking about how they feed on the shrimp and other organizations that are overcome by the... All right, so this is going to be, we're going to replace this with something that's talking about the bacteria because, let's see these answer choices. Their adaptations are not fully understood. That has nothing to do with feeding on the shrimp. Thriving in an unusual ecosystem, that has nothing to do with the shrimp. I like this one from the get-go because it says, or I'm not going to circle it yet, but it says, but as adults. And you can see how the previous sentence ends with as juveniles. So this is saying the shrimp can graze on bacteria as juveniles, but as adults, their claws are large enough for the shrimp to be predators. So I'm going to go with that one. Answer choice D for number 7. During an underwater eruption, steam quickly condenses. The steam leaves only carbon dioxide. All right, so the question's asking me to combine the sentences at the underlined portion. So I'm going to get rid of the steam. And without looking at the answer choices, I'm just going to see what my first thought is. During an underwater eruption, steam quickly condenses and leaves only carbon dioxide. Let's see if that's that's an answer choice right there. So that's a trick that I like to use. Is just before you even look at the answer choices and get them all in your head, just kind of think about, if I'm reading this story or I'm reading this article, what would make sense? What would make sense? And the first thing that my brain went to was an answer choice, so I'm going to go with that. Only after quickly glancing at the other 3 answer choices and making sure that I'm not overlooking something. Number 9, this means that the water near NW Rota 1 is more acidic than that of stomach acid, presenting, okay, well, it's not those of stomach acid. You're not going to say the acid from stomach acid, because that's, again, redundant. So stomach acid would work. This means that the water near NW Rota 1 is more acidic than stomach acid. That's the one that I'm going to go to. It's the simplest answer choice, so that's always the one you should go with, as long as it's grammatically correct. Number 10, as the carbon dioxide level in Earth's atmosphere rises, the world's oceans absorb. Okay, so tons of apostrophes. This is just grammar rules that you got to memorize and drill down once, and then you're never going to forget them. The world's, so that first apostrophe is wrong. It should go right after, because it's the singular world with a possessive S. The world's oceans absorb more carbon dioxide. There's no possessive for the ocean. There should be no possessive for the ocean there, because it's just talking about the world's ocean. So let's see an answer choice that has... All right, so number C is saying the world, possessive S, and then oceans, just plural. Perfect. Number 11, as the carbon dioxide level in Earth's atmosphere rises, the world's oceans absorb more carbon dioxide, which increases their acidity. Should the writer make this revision here? Well, without it, it kind of just seems like a random sentence if you're reading that. So I'm going to first look at these yes answer choices. Yes, because it helps the reader understand why organisms near evolved the way that they did. Maybe, but it doesn't really have to do with their evolution. This paragraph is more about like acidity, so because it explains the relevance of this sentence to the point made in the paragraph. I think that's a perfect answer choice. I'm going to look at C and D. It doesn't repeat any information, because that's the first time it's talking about how the carbon dioxide, how the acidity, what's causing that rise in acidity, and it's because of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So yeah, I'm going to choose A for that, because it explains the relevance of this sentence. City planners concerned about vehicle traffic are trying to find ways to get people out of their cars. While fare-free policies do increase ridership, but they have not been found. This is just something, as you're reading it, you know something's up with that. So you know the A is not going to be right. We have to change this in some way. While fare-free policies do increase ridership, they have not been found. That's like I was saying before. Without even looking at the answer choice, just go through and see what feels right to you. And that's sure enough is answer choice C. They do increase ridership. While they increase ridership, they have not been found to be an effective way. So that's going to be C without the semicolon, with the comma right after. 13. Not surprisingly, public transportation is used by more people when people do not have to pay a fare. That's redundancy again. It shows up so many times, I promise, and it shows up on the ACT if you're taking that one. So we're going to use one that doesn't say people so many times. Not surprisingly, public transportation is used by more people when people do not have to pay. More people, and choice C says people twice. Using public transportation is done by more people. I think that's called a passive verb, maybe, and that's just a weird thing to use there. So 13, I'm gonna use answer choice B because it's the most effective version of that. It only says people once. It's not redundant. Yeah, that makes sense. In 2013, they instituted fare free rides for city residents, but car use has only slightly declined. As a 2014 study. So that semicolon doesn't work there, so we're gonna have to change it. As a 2014 study found that traffic was down less than 3%. So I'm thinking the colon for now. We can't put a comma there. And then we don't want to separate the sentences because those sentences are still connected. So this is saying in 2013, car use has only slightly declined, and then colon, this is the example, this is the statistic they're giving. So it's like they're setting you up to give that statistic. So I'm gonna put a colon there. I think that's good. Number 15, car traffic was down less than 3% since it was enacted. I think using it there is too vague because they haven't referenced what they're talking about. The fare-free rides, that's also probably plural, so I would say the policy, since the policy was enacted, because they're talking about fare-free rides. So since the policy was enacted, the car traffic was down less than 3%. So I'm gonna go with the policy, yeah. Instituting a fare-free system can also have a devastating effect on a city's transportation budget. Which choice best introduces this paragraph? Okay, so this question is a really common type of question, and there's a really easy way to do it. This is another tip that Chase gave me. If you go through the paragraph and just pick one word to describe the paragraph. So I see all public transportation systems are subsidized by the government. I see the word fares. I see a lot of things about fares. I see funding. I see fare-free policies. So clearly this passage is about money or budgets or funding. So I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm looking for something to introduce this section. So the choice that's already there makes sense. It can have a devastating effect on budget, and then it goes to talk about the budget and subsidization. Requires planners to make careful considerations about change in service. That works. But it's asking which best introduces the paragraph. So to be more specific, it'd probably be about the budget. Impact on the environment's not talking about that yet. And then also has the drawback of increasing crowding. Doesn't say anything about crowding. It's mostly about that budget. So I'm gonna keep it, or not about the budget, but about the money and the funding. So I'm gonna keep it no change. That's A for number 16. All right. Advocates of fare-free policies claim that the costs of these policies are largely offset by various savings. However, a recent study comparing projected... Okay, so these are two separate independent clauses that we need to connect with a comma fanboys conjunction right there. So looking at the answer choices, we have and, but that's following a semicolon, which is incorrect. We have but following a comma, which works. And then with no conjunction afterwards, the sentence doesn't have the same meaning. It's talking about how they claim that the costs are largely offset by savings. A recent study comparing projected, so you need a word like but there to get their point across that they're introducing a contradiction to that sentence. So, comma fanboys after that to connect the two independent clauses on number 17. A recent study comparing projected results of fare-free policies in different studies found this outlook to be way too sunny. All right, that's definitely gonna have to change. You'll know just by reading the article that doesn't fit the tone of the. It's a more formal article, so you're gonna want to use something like answer choice D, overly optimistic, pretty upbeat. Yeah, it's just more casual. This is like a scientific article, or yeah. So I would say overly optimistic because these are like idioms almost. Way too sunny or looking on the bright side. Overly optimistic is like the most formal usage of that phrase, or most formal way to say that. All right. For example, in San Francisco, fare-free public transit was projected to save $8.4 million per year in fare collection costs, but create a deficit of $72 million per year. Which choice provides an accurate, oh gosh, okay, I have to interpret this chart. So it's talking about San Francisco, so I'm not going to look at these other things for now. San Francisco, they were projected to save 8.4 million per year, yep, but create a deficit of 72 million per year in lost fares. So I know that that's not right, because the cost in lost fares, as it says right there, is 112 million. So it's not 72 million. That's just wrong based off this table. Save an additional 112 million from lost fares. They wouldn't be saving that. That would be a loss for them. But result in a total increase of 184 million per year in operating costs. That sounds right. And save $72 million in. Again, they wouldn't save this 72 million. They're not saving by doing this added service. So I'm gonna go with C, because it's the most accurate interpretation of the chart. The writer is considering adding the following sentence based on information from the chart. By contrast, Lane Transit in Eugene, Oregon would lose only $5 million in fares if it instituted a fare-free system. Should the writer make this addition here? Again, I'm going to make my guess before I look at the answer choices. I'm going to say no, because this article is pretty much saying how this is not working. The first paragraph ends in, these policies may result in serious budget shortfalls. So if there's something that's saying that he goes against his point, yeah, it contradicts a point about fare collection, or no, it does not support the argument that it causes a substantial loss. I'm going to go with that one. Yeah. All right, 17 minutes. So I'm going to pick up the pace a tiny bit. This is not I'm just going to skip right to this sentence. Some college towns. Buses can go faster when drivers would not have to collect fares. Do not have to collect. I just know that by reading the sentence. I know that that's going to fit right in there. For large cities looking to reduce automobile traffic, though, research about Estonia could be instructive. Looking at the answer choices. So some towns use this because the buses can go faster. But if you're trying to reduce traffic, fare-free public transportation is not the answer. I like that. All right, moving on to 23, new passage. Photographers harumphed that these digital cameras produced ugly, low-resolution images. Okay, so the digital camera produced ugly, low-resolution images. That's a singular noun, so you're gonna have to use it. It produced ugly, low-resolution images, it being the digital camera. 24. The writer plans to add the following sentence to this paragraph. Why wouldn't they? Where should they put that? Eventually, the vast majority of them traded film for megapixels. Why wouldn't they? That sounds right for me. Appear to be die cut. Why wouldn't they? That doesn't make sense. Yeah. They switched them for megapixels. Why wouldn't they? So that's going to go after sentence 2. So yeah. 25. Wet plate photographers essentially create their own film. This process can be dangerous. And he wants to say it's also labor intensive, involving several intricate steps. Okay, I'm going to say yes for now and then look at the choices. Because it sets up the paragraph's outline of the process of wet plate photography. Let's see. That does seem to be what the paragraph is about. So I would say it's a good idea to set that up in that way. Yeah, so he's saying the process is dangerous. It also involves several steps. Here are the steps. That's what that answer choice is saying. 26. To take a wet plate photograph, photographers usually first arrange or pose its subjects. Without looking at the answer choices, there would work better. They arranged their subjects. So yeah, there. And then I just would hope that you don't choose the wrong there in that question. That's just something that you gotta learn, and then it's another thing you won't forget. Oh, my timer. 27. Dried collodion is unusable. So once the photo is snapped, the photographer doesn't have much time to develop it. I like it how it is. It's unusable, so they have to go fast when they get the photo. Not but, because it's supporting the fact that they have to use it before it dries. The photographer has nominal minutes to develop it. They want to emphasize how quickly wet plate photographers. So you're going to want to use a word that talks about how quickly. So mere minutes. Yeah, mere minutes. That's gonna be the most emphasis on how quick it is. The photo is then immersed in water and warmed. In conclusion, it is coated. That sounds like a 9th grade essay and ending. In conclusion, no, this is talking about these like steps. So it's probably gonna be something like finally. Yeah, the photo is then immersed in water. Finally, it's coated with lavender. Yeah, it wouldn't be thus or nevertheless because it's talking about the final step. It wouldn't be in conclusion either. It's coated with lavender oil to give it a protective finish. That doesn't need to be complicated at all. It's coated with lavender oil to give it a protective finish, but all these answer choices are making it super complicated with commas and hyphens. Yeah, it's coated with lavender to give it a protective finish. That works. All right, 13 minutes, so I have about, 1 minute per question? Wet plate photos are marvelously fine-grained and detailed. One misstep or a speck of dust on the glass plate, though, and falls appear. Smudges resembling oyster shells swirl around the photo's edges. Sunbursts or streaks emerge when collodion pools unevenly. Since the film requires long exposures, moving subjects blur. So blur, emerge, and swirl, they're all going to be in the same verb form. That's just like parallelism and sentence structure. You're going to want to keep it all consistent. So if this is saying they swirl, they emerge, and they blur, you're going to want to keep it in that form and not change it, because then it would have to be like emerged or blurred. So we're going to keep it like that. The film requires long exposures, and then this answer choice is talking about long exposure again. That's a little bit of redundancy, but let's see. Yeah, it looks like they want you to recognize that those sentences are redundant. So I'm going to go 32. I'm going to say D. Since the film requires long exposures, moving subjects blur. A shifting arm or leg might even disappear. You don't need to reference the long exposure again. Joni Sternbach, her work centers on water and people's relationship to it. Her subjects could be 19th century wave riders, if not for the modern board shorts and bikinis they wear. The writer wants to highlight the contrast between Sternbach's techniques. Okay, what are her techniques? She puts them on a piece of paper, and she's not talking about digital print. So her techniques are like old. And she wants to contrast her old techniques with the modern people that she's taking photos of. So I think the best way to say that is to say that the people could be 19th century wave riders. Not that they could be ordinary people, because that has nothing to do with how she takes the photos. Again, surfers doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they're on pieces of paper. So if you keep it as no change, it's saying her subjects could be really old surfers, if not for the modern board shorts they're wearing in the photos, which is the only way to tell that these photos are taken now, because otherwise you would just think that they're old photos because they're on a piece of paper and they're not digital. The writer is considering revising the underlined portion. The underlined portion is about cities. Okay, so this is giving a job description on urban archaeologists. So they study the history of cities by excavating artifacts that have accumulated. I think they should definitely make that change, and they should, because it helps set up the rest of the passage, because it identifies the characteristics that make particular cities worthy. No, it's going to set up what archaeologists or urban archaeologists do for the rest of the paragraph. Any new New York construction project using municipal funds are required. Any New York construction project is required. That's just the subject-verb agreement. I'm in 12th grade now. I haven't looked at this stuff in forever. I think that's what it's called. 36. Whether historical artifacts will be affected during construction, and if that possibility exists or is possible, an urban archaeologist must be... Okay, if that possibility is possible, Again, that's redundancy. Just cross out the is possible. If that possibility exists, is that an answer choice? Yes, it is. 36D reads, and if that possibility exists, an urban archaeologist must be consulted. Just keep it easy, go quick like that, get rid of the redundancy, and you'll be all good. As the work continued, therefore, the team faced obstacles. It's not going to be meanwhile. It's not going to be similarly. But it's not going to be therefore because it's not proving anything about a previous sentence. So I'm going to go with though. Yeah. The work continued though the team faced obstacles. As the work continued though, the team faced obstacles. That makes the most sense to me. The archaeologist team's work was periodically halted by stormy weather. Doesn't need any punctuation on my first read. The archaeology team's work was periodically halted by stormy weather. Yeah, it doesn't need any punctuation. So I'm going to go with the simplest answer right there. The noise of construction vehicles, car horns, and pedestrians' noise. Again, we see that noise too many times, so we're just going to take that out. Vehicles, car horns, and pedestrians. I'm going to go with that, but let's read the sentence. They had to contend with the noise of construction vehicles, car horns, and pedestrians on the New York streets. That's perfect. Otherwise, it's redundant or too complicated. 8 minutes left for 5 questions. Despite these setbacks, they had some interesting artifacts. They discovered a foundation wall. In 2013, they discovered thousands of objects in a single 15-foot stretch that was likely a garbage disposal site, including buttons from... So you can't start this new sentence with including. You have to connect those. So it's going to have to be something like, they discovered thousands of objects in a site, or in this site, somewhere that was likely a site that included, or including. So it's going to be in between these two. I'm going to say C, the comma. Let's see. It was likely a garbage disposal site, including buttons from... sorry. Thousands of objects, including buttons from Revolutionary War uniforms. So see how I just ignore that middle part right there? If you ignore that middle part and just look at the word that you're putting in, including, it works perfectly. Discovered thousands of objects, including buttons from Revolutionary War uniforms. So that's, I'm going to choose that answer choice C there. All right, 41. As they cleaned and cataloged the artifacts, the archaeologists took stock of their findings. Their discoveries provided a snapshot of the various kinds of construction materials that were used. Effectively sets up the example discussed in the following sentence. So the example discussed is about securing fresh drinking water. The New Yorkers securing fresh drinking water. And they did this by laying wooden pipes, digging very deep, brewing alcohol to mask the water's salty taste. That's funny. And even importing bottled water. So that's about how they got fresh drinking water for colonial era New Yorkers. So the answer choice that talks about getting fresh drinking water, the numerous rituals associated with hospitality. That's a weird way of talking about that. It's also not like numerous rituals. Public utility planning and infrastructure development. I like that for now. How major construction projects were financed has nothing to do with finances, and then the choice it gives you is various kinds of construction materials that were used. I'm going to say public utility planning because it's talking about how they got fresh drinking water. Which choice best maintains the style and tone of the passage? 42. They went to great lengths given the effort involved in laying wooden pipes. Okay, blood, sweat, and tears. I don't want to say that that's never going to be the answer for one of these, but that's very dramatic for an article about urban archaeologists and feats of strength and fortitude. Maybe if it's like a fictional story about a hero saving someone. And then hassle kind of sounds like they don't want to do it or something. Effort is the best word there, clearly. That fits the tone. Those words would work, but they don't really fit the tone of the passage. And you know that just by getting a feel for the passage as you read through it. And also you know that because it's a nonfiction article, and you're going to be wanting to use like formal words and not like charged with emotion like blood, sweat, and tears. Through such discoveries, they tell the story of a city in a new way. Yeah, they is too vague. Like we had a problem with this. Or we had a question about this earlier. They is too vague to just say out of the blue. So, yeah, this is the conclusion paragraph. So we're going to be talking about urban archaeologists. So through such discoveries, urban archaeologists tell the story of a city's history in a new way. It's not talking about the colonial New Yorkers. This is talking about the archaeologists. And final question with 4 minutes left. They tell the story of the city's history in a new way. One of my favorite things is putting together someone's life. Okay. She wants to conclude the passage with a quotation that illustrates the broad impact of her team's work. This is the most important part of that question. It's a quotation that illustrates the broad impact of her team's work. So focus on that as you're looking through these answer choices. New York's city construction has a lot of stops and starts. That's not really about their broad impact. Finding the bits and pieces that were actually used by the people in the past makes New York City's history real. That's their impact is making the history of the city real. We call our archaeological technique monitoring, and we work hand in hand with the contractors and are part of their team. That's talking about how they work. It's not really about their impact. I think the best choice is C. It talks about how they're making New York City's history real, and that, in my opinion, illustrates the broad impact of her team's work. And with 3 minutes left, I'm going to stop there. Well, I'm going to make sure that I answered every single question. All right, I'm going to stop the timer there with 2 minutes left, and I'm going to check my answers. That was fun. That was the first time that that wasn't that fun. Okay. No, I'm totally kidding. I had a great time doing that for you guys. And I actually wrote about this, how nice it is to feel like I'm helping you guys out. And I really appreciate all the comments. Hopefully that these type of videos can help you, raise your score on these tests. Like Chase said, this is the October, it's on here on the bottom, the October 2017 writing and language test. It's also test 9.
Test 9.
Test 9. All right. No, the reason I said that is because I haven't taken one of these since my junior year or the beginning of my junior year when I was really stressed out about all this stuff. So.
Been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. All right, so I'm gonna go through my answers. Gonna switch it to red. Oh, that changes everything to red. I don't know how to use this as well as Chase does.
Hit comment.
Oh.
Or you like comment off.
Comment.
Like hit the export check mark or something.
Did I just erase all my answers? Wait. Oh, I just erased my answer for number 1. What did I put? Watch. Okay. Number 1. I'm just gonna deal with the. Okay, I did it. All right, number 1 is B. Nice. Okay, I'm not gonna write anything if I got them right. Number 2 is B. Number 3 is A. 4 is C. 5 is D. 6 is C. 7 is D. 8 A. 9 D. 10 C. 11 A. First passage. All good. 12 is C. 13 is B. 14 is B. 15 is D. 16 A. 17 C. 18 D. 19 C. 20 C. 21 B. 22 D. Okay, second passage, all good. 23 is B. 24 is B. 25 is B. 26 D. 27 A. 28 D. 29 B. Oops. My bad, guys. Where was I? 28 D. 29 B. 30 D. 31 A. 32 D. 33 A. 34A, 35C, 36D, 37B, 38D, 39C, 40C, 41C, 42A, 43D, and 44C. Let's go! 100%, 44 out of 44.
All right, guys. So as you saw there, he's pretty impressive. It's even more impressive considering Owen. He mentioned taking the SAT one time. I think he focused primarily on the ACT, but I think that's again one of the things that he would say that clearly Owen was a good English student. This isn't, it's not like Owen started getting 5 questions right and then worked up to 44. But one of the things that he was really, really diligent about is wherever you are right now. It's particularly true of the SAT writing and language section that every question is worth 10 points. And I think the thing that Owen did better than probably anybody we've maybe ever had in the programs, he got a perfect score on the ACT English section, and this is very similar. So again, he's a great student, but it wasn't like he started high, but wasn't maybe all the way there at the time.
Not at all, yeah.
Yeah, and so on the ACT, similar to the SAT, everything he talked through was perfect in terms of like recognizing things like redundancies. That's not something that you guys think about as 16-year-olds. That's not the first thing on your mind. Owen hasn't done this since October of his junior year. It's not a year and a half later, right?
Yeah. Before the first official ACT, I think I had taken like 8 or 9 practice tests, and once you do that, and especially if you're diligent with the corrections, you start to see these patterns, like with the redundancy, with the little strategies that I had. That's just because I took the test so many times, and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and if you guys keep working on it, and like you said, reflecting on it, that's the big key. Because a lot of times we have students that are just that are really, really nervous, I guess, about taking more practice tests. They think that they need to take more practice tests. If you take a practice test and then don't think about it, it's
useless.
It's useless.
Yeah, and especially I see this when I was first starting out, and if you're getting, this is a big tip, especially if you're getting a lot of the questions right, and especially if you're someone that does well in school, it might be hard for you to first really sit down and write. What I did one time was write a sentence on each question I got wrong, because that way you're never going to get those types of questions wrong again. And it might be hard to do at first, especially if you're used to getting a lot of things right on tests in school or on the ACT.
Or if you're just busy too. I mean, that's the thing that we hear every time. But again, Owen never made excuses. All the students that we have that do really well or improve their score, I don't even want to set the standard of like you having to get 44 to 44.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But just like improving. I mean, Owen just wanted it more than he did those things, and they'll pay off huge. I mean, right?
I mean, there's always time to kind of, especially now that you have these apps where you can just, like the Star U app, you can just quickly go through these questions. There's always time to strengthen these skills, and you just got to find that time and put the work in. And like I said, the more you do, the more you're going to get used to it. And
so Star U, for example, has redundancies on it. So if you guys log into Star U and you realize that you keep missing redundancy questions, you guys can do more redundancy questions. On top of that, before we let you guys go, there's 2 things I want to point out that Owen did phenomenally well, and he did this back in the day too. That wasn't that long ago. Back in the day makes it sound like we're 19th century wave riders. Yeah, back in his old days. Is you guys saw when he started the video, we're
19th century
bringing us back from the test. If you guys watch the video, Owen and I, if you watch our ACT video where we screwed up the filming at one point. Okay, on the SAT, we didn't even Owen forgot, or we didn't talk to him about how to use the thing, and he was trying to work through it. But he remained calm. It wasn't like, oh my God, we're a minute into this and I haven't even thought about this because I can't figure out how to use the iPad. It was like, I'm a minute down now, and it was the circumstances that he found himself in.
Yeah, and that's like your calculator not booting up fast enough. That's like your pen running out of ink, so you have to grab your other pen. That's like it's not sharp enough, so you have to fool around with that. But an important thing to draw away from this is the reason that I was able to calmly go on and move on is because there's nothing really writing on this test. And if you have that mindset, like say you're taking the ACT or the SAT for your first time, and you can just sit down and think of it as like you need to be calm in that moment. You might have plenty of chances to take it afterwards, and even if you don't, if you get yourself in that mindset of like, okay, I just got to focus on this right now, I'm going to be calm about it, then you're going to be able to just go through it like I am, because this doesn't, I mean, this has no effect on my current
status, but you were even able to do that really well before, and that's what we try to say more than anything. I think once Owen realized back in the day right? We talked a lot about the psychology behind it, and just like taking a deep breath. Look, when you finish this test, it's going to be Saturday afternoon. You're going to be just fine. So take a deep breath. Don't let this thing ride on your entire life, or you're just going to be overwhelmed by it. This isn't going to have the overall effect on your college application. It's going to be important. Yes, we want you guys to do better. We want you to work hard, of course, but it's not like this is the only thing. So don't let this be the only thing, because when you sit down and take the test, if this is the only thing, it's going to put way too much stress on you.
Yeah. And another thing on that note, I'm sure Chase can attest to this, like, no matter how much you think about the testing center, and no matter how much Chase tells you about like how the proctors out there are like the wild west, you never know who you're gonna have. Like everyone's first time taking the test, you're gonna have something. Like, you're gonna be focused. You're not gonna be completely prepared for it, but if you go into it knowing that you're not gonna be that something might go wrong, you're gonna be a step ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal point. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how important that note is. That if you go in the first time, especially,
everyone's gonna have something their first time.
Clock doesn't work.
Yeah, and not even that. It's like the nerves are gonna get to you your first time, just because it's your first time ever taking the test, being in that environment. Like,
and you're sitting so close. I mean, like, be like me and Owen sitting there, and I'm like, whoa, what's Owen? What's this guy's deal, right? And it's like you're sitting there in those desks, so that's never gonna feel like a comfortable situation.
Yeah.
The most important thing you can do in that moment is to learn from it. So, like, the first time you take it, if you don't feel comfortable, what was it about it that didn't feel comfortable, and how can we adapt and not make that happen the second time? And that make a huge difference when you take it the second time. The last thing I want to bring up before I let you go. So Owen has practiced this a lot, even though it's been a long time and he took the ACT. This test is very similar to the ACT English section. So he was familiar. I felt like he was going to do well because he did well in the real thing. If you finish early, Owen finished a couple minutes early here. It's okay, he got every question right, but I would have come in here if he didn't get every question right. He was 2.5 minutes ahead of time. Really, like 3.5 minutes. We would have had to. The conversation here would have been a little less lighthearted.
And also, like, I don't normally just like stop the time and be done with the test. But like when I was taking the ACT, if I was going through a test, I would star questions that I was like completely unsure of. When I was going through this, I don't know. I was confident in a lot of my answer choices, but usually I would have stars next to answer questions, or Chase does that all the time with his. I mean, not to say that you're not always confident in your answer.
I do that all the time. It's true. I don't know enough.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. None of us know enough in a timed environment when we start to get stressed. It's 100% true. I don't know everything. And if you watch these videos, I think, again, me saying to Owen, again, back in the day, that I don't know everything, you got to work, you got to figure out what works for you, that makes all the difference. Because if you know that, if you don't listen to me with like all 100%, we talk about like this extreme. Owen and I always talk about beyond even this test, don't go extreme. Like, you don't have to think of this as everything. You don't have to think of everything that I say or that Owen says as the end all be all. Just work on it yourself. Figure out what, from this video that Owen just did, figure out what works for you. There are some things, clearly he got every question right, so there are going to be some things that work really well that he did, but then you adapt to what works for you, and everything will go well, I promise.
Yeah.
And again, it's and then you move on. It's like Saturday afternoon, and that's it. And now go hang out with your friends.
Food and hang out with your friends. Another thing I want to mention is throughout the test, I was saying things like subject-verb agreement, or I was saying like parallelism, and like I said, like those are things that you don't need to know the names for those things. Like, as long as you memorize the concepts, and I just, for some reason, I'm always in the class with Chase when he's talking about those things, so that's why I know the names of them. But like, the first thing I talked about when I sat down was like, this stuff, it isn't about memorizing this material, it's about kind of just
memorizing the name of the material, right? It's about
it's really just getting a feel for it, and like you're gonna know what a correct subject verb agreement feels like, or what it sounds like, or what it sounds like in your head when you're reading it, without having to know the name of it. I just have to
it's exactly right. You don't have to say subject verb agreement. I mean, again, if you unfortunately, if you look at this stuff every day, you start to just think like, oh, subject verb agreement. But if you're 17 years old, I'm sure you have better things to do than to listen to me talk about SAT stuff all day. And so again, just know that, reflect on it, feel better each time. If you're improving your score by 3 questions, that's 30 points on the writing and language test. You will get better. You'll continue to do well. Owen, again, you take his example here. He works extremely hard. He's already really good at the English test, but it wasn't enough just to get 38 out of 44 or whatever. He was going to work as hard as he could to make sure that he could get 44 out of 44 with time to spare. So again, guys, keep working hard. If you guys have any comments for Owen, he'll respond within the comments section. If you have any comments for any of us on any of the videos, please let us know. We're really thrilled with the response we've gotten in some of the comments. We're thrilled that people are getting better at this test because of these videos. And guys, yeah, just keep working hard. It'll come. So special thanks to Owen for coming in today. Hopefully we get him to do a math video.
I had a great time.
Yeah, he had a great time taking the SAT, I'm sure. Imagine being a 12th grader and me asking you to come in and take a practice SAT section. It was a little bit difficult to get him in here, but he knocked it out. So yeah, guys, so have a great rest of your week. Good luck on your next test, and yeah, I'm sure you'll see this guy soon in another video.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Fingers crossed. All right, guys, great job.
All right, later.
See ya.